You seem to be able to do it with psychedelic drugs.
You seem to be able to do what with psychedelic drugs?
Well, everybody that takes them under reliable settings generally comes back and claims the presence of a mystical experience.
Yeah,
and that seems to be duplicatable and replicable across cultures, in labs, with multiple different substances, the chemical constituents of which are known very well. It's like it's part of this religious phenomenology. And to me, that's just a set of facts. And we know that people have been using those substances to evoke mystical and religious experiences for, who knows, 150,000 years maybe.
Sure.
We can at least infer that. And we have no idea whatsoever how much of an effect the use of those substances has had on the metaphysical substrate of our culture. So what constitutes scientific data here is by no means clear. Here's an example of this, for example.
Before the example,
yeah?
As someone who's been high as a kite, I fully agree that people take drugs and report experiences that they describe as mystical or supernatural. Just like people report other experiences as if they were religious or ghosts or whatever. We have no way of confirming that this something mystical or supernatural actually happened. What this is about the language.
Stops people from smoking.
Well, you can stop smoking without any sort of supernatural intervention.
No, not really.
You can't stop smoking without supernatural?
There aren't really any reliable chemical means for inducing smoking cessation. You can use a drug called bupropion. I think that's the one. It's whatever Wellbutrin is.
Is that supernatural?
No, you don't need a supernatural effect, but it doesn't work very well. But if you give people magic mushrooms, psilocybin, and they have a mystical experience, they have about an 85% chance of smoking cessation with one treatment. But that's kind of like evidence, you know. It's kind of like evidence.
It's evidence that you can take mushrooms and increase your chance of quitting smoking. But
no, it's not. It's indication that if you take mushrooms and you have a mystical experience, you'll stop smoking because it doesn't work if you don't have the experience.
If you take mushrooms and you have an experience that you describe as mystical, then you'll increase your chance of smoking. But that doesn't tell me whether or not there was something to this notion that they had an experience that was supernatural in any sense.
Well, it's not definitive evidence.
It's not evidence at all.
Oh, sure it is. Oh, sure it is.
No.
How is it? Wait a second. Wait a second. That's wrong.
Okay.
It is evidence. So, because look
no, he's right.
You want to speak.
He's right.
You want to think through this skeptically. Okay. You have a pharmacological substance. It's psilocybin. You give it to people who are trying to quit smoking. The psilocybin doesn't directly have an impact on the smoking behavior. It has to elicit what's described subjectively as a mystical experience. And you can get physiological indicators of that mystical experience. And you might say, well, that's not enough to prove that it's a mystical experience, but, you know, you're conscious and I accept that. It's like you accept all sorts of things without being able to demonstrate their validity on every possible objective with every possible objective criteria. So don't get in too much of a hurry. It's a serious issue. If you give people psilocybin, for example, and they have a mystical experience, not only are they much more likely to quit smoking, which is really something, but they're also much less likely to suffer from death anxiety if they have cancer. Like, that's quite the thing. And not only that, if you test them a year later and they've had a mystical experience, which the majority of them regard as the most significant one, two, or three experiences of their life, including such things as getting married, their personalities are permanently altered in the direction of more openness to experience and more creativity by a standard deviation. Like, that's walloping effects. So we can't get too much in a hurry about dispensing with all that.
Skepticism, as I repeatedly point out in the show, is not about cynicism. It's not about debunking. And I'm not saying that there is no supernatural and that there is no mystical experience. What I'm saying is the thing that people subjectively describe as, I had an incredibly impactful mystical experience, whether it comes from taking a pharmaceutical, whether it comes from attending a revival church service or hearing a particular preacher, whether it comes from having a particularly impressive sexual experience, all of those things, that is the subjective description of that, which may be because of limitations in language, that they don't have any other. This is the language that infuses culture, so that we have to use that to describe it. But that doesn't in any way serve to confirm that there is any sort of supernatural realm or any sort of supernatural actor.
Well, it depends on how you define supernatural. Like, look, I get your point.
Okay.
And I'm not claiming that the phenomena of psilocybin intoxication is direct proof for the existence of God. I'm not saying that. I am saying
Although that'd be awesome.
Well, people do report personal experiences of that sort of thing. So it's not completely out of the realm of the experience. But it's also because of the problem of the border between the subjective and the objective. It's difficult to probe deeply enough to come up with anything definitive. And I understand that that's a problem. But the supernatural issue, that's a different issue. Like, people are capable of entering different experiential realms where things are qualitatively different to them. The perceptions are different, the thoughts are different, their response to the world is different. They feel that they've died an ego death and transcended their normal mode of perception. Like, maybe that's not part of the supernatural, but then you're starting to define the supernatural pretty narrowly. Like,
no,
do you require miracle, like here and now? Something that defies the laws of physics? Or what's your definition of the supernatural?
So there is the natural world.
Yeah.
And then there are people who make claims that something is not part of the natural world, that it has some external supernatural origin. Those are the claims that I don't see how we can make any sort of epistemologically sound confirmation of.